Very great news. The British troops actually at Mount Holly, guards of militia placed at London and York bridges, gondola men in arms patrolling the streets, and diligent search.
Today we hear General Howe is in Trenton, and it is thought there will be an engagement soon. A man who was at Mount Holly the other day tells us he saw a great many of the British troops, that some of them went to the magazine there and took out about 100 wooden canteens and the same number of broken firearms. It is said that Putnam with 1,000 men are at Mount Holly. All the women have removed from the town, except one widow of our acquaintance.
All right, Marissa, so today we're in Mount Holly on Ironworks Hill, and the action has switched. So before, up until this time, Margaret had been writing in her diary about the things she sees, what's going on in Burlington, the rogue alleys, the Hessians, things like that. But now she's talking about things she didn't see. She's talking about the action and what's going on here in Mount Holly. And where is she getting her information?
Yeah, so we're pretty sure from what she writes and her references in her diary that she's getting most of her information from a gentleman named James Verree.
James Verree.
Yeah, he was her neighbor in Burlington, but he seems to have business of some sort that draws him out of Burlington. So he's traveling to Mount Holly and surrounding communities.
So he's going to be well connected.
Right. He's seeing things that are going on and seeing it firsthand.
And he's coming back, and it's just odd for me that, you know, he's reporting these things back to Margaret.
Right.
In fact, I mean, she knows troop movements, where the troops are, how many troops there are, you know, when they leave town and when they don't.
Yep.
And of course, that leads us into our suspicions that she knows more than she should.
Yes.
And we thought, of course, that she could possibly be a spy. Now, of course, famously, for us at least, we were sitting in our office one day, and you started reading the diary of Margaret Morris. And you got to this part and you had this epiphany. It dawned on you. So what did she write that day in her diary?
Yes, so she writes that General Putnam is in Mount Holly with 1,000 troops, and that all of the women have left Mount Holly except for a widow of our acquaintance.
So one widow, and so when you read that, you instantly turned to me and you said, Margaret knows who the widow is.
Yeah.
Now I have brought that up to other people, and one local historian mentioned, well, it could have been another widow. And I guess that's certainly possible, except she's very specific when she writes that all the women have left.
Right.
She doesn't just say, you know, some of the people have left or the people are leaving. She specifically says, all the women have left, and then she says, except.
Right, except for one.
Right.
And what I find interesting is, too, she makes a point almost of not saying who the widow is.
Right.
She could have easily said, everybody has left except for our friend so-and-so. Where she says, a widow of our acquaintance, that everybody in her inner circle should know who she means.
Yeah, so this was right. That's a good point. So this is going to be when she says our acquaintance. This is a family friend or has ties somehow.
Right.
Wow.
Yep.
All right, and so now, of course, this leads us into, this is when the real serious fighting starts. Up until this time, there have been a number of skirmishes. There have been people out collecting cattle, and the Hessians have caught them doing that. But now we're at that point, December, I think we're coming up on December 22nd, where the fighting really starts in earnest.
Yeah.
So just a quick historical side note here. Margaret Morris was getting a ton of information, but it wasn't always accurate. It wasn't General Putnam who was in New Jersey. It was a subordinate, a Virginian named Samuel Griffin. And he didn't have 1,000 men with him either. He had some regulars from Virginia and Pennsylvania, but most of the men he had were militia from Cumberland, Salem, and Gloucester counties. And most of them weren't even men, they were just young boys who decided to answer the call when the militia was called out. Another thing, this attack of Griffins on Petticoat Bridge wasn't some elaborate ruse planned by General Washington to draw the Hessians south from Bordentown. Colonel Griffin was attacking Petticoat Bridge because he was a fighter and because he thought he could win.